The grind doesn't stop just because we're sick, jet-lagged, and depressed.
Hello, welcome back to Fridays with Lady Splitchin. It is so good to be back. As many of you know, I have been taking the last few weeks off because my grandfather passed away and I ended up traveling all the way to Poland to attend the funeral and also be there for my grandma in person. And I think I was very, very lucky to be able to do that on such short notice. Literally, I decided in 20 minutes that I was going to go, which is kind of crazy. Even though I speak very, very little Polish, and there's still a pretty strong language barrier, I am so grateful that I got a chance to go. I got to see a lot of family members that I don't really get to see that often, and it was really beautiful. And I know I said it a couple times during the break, but I am truly grateful to you guys as well for letting me take the break, I guess, and also just being so patient while I come back to things and slowly gather myself after the whole experience. A lot of you have sent me the sweetest messages telling me to take my time, telling me that you understand, and that just really warms my heart, but also made me miss you guys so very much. And I'm never one to stand by the idea that a bad thing happens for a reason, but I did really need the break, turns out, and I didn't know I needed one until I actually was forced to take one. And if I hadn't taken one, I probably would be still burnt out and running myself into the ground to finish projects. But since I did take the break, I was able to come back to art, and I was just sort of reinvigorated with a zest for art and cosplay and just making videos and missing you guys all very much. And I also came back in time for the last week of Ren Fair, which was also the last week that I planned to go with friends, and not just any friends, but with friends who were willing to do a group cosplay. My first group cosplay, and not only my first group cosplay, but also my first time cosplaying a character entirely of my own design. It's in Io. It's Io. I know a couple of people asked about an Inkashti cosplay, to which I say, but this Ren Fair I plan to go with the other players of the party that Io is in, Teravich and Stub. We all thought it would be really fun to go as our own characters. So in this video I tackle Io's outfit, the pants, the vest, and the shirt, as well as a couple of the accessories. Unfortunately, I once again have to do the makeup in a separate video, much like I did with my Jester Lavore cosplay videos, because alas, I am a mortal being cursed with the need to slumber in order to maintain sanity. So the first step is constructing the blouse that Io is wearing, which is 3 things: light linen-like fabric, big sleeves, and a sweetheart neckline, which, lucky for me, I have a pattern for a dress with that exact bodice format. A dress that you all have seen me use before in my Pike cosplay video, another multi-part cosplay series that I haven't finished, but I promise I've been working on. See, you could definitely see the foam bits of me making Pike's armor all over the place. But anyways, this is a Simplicity pattern, the Mrs.'s dress pattern by Gwen Hang, or ME 2021. This would be the 3rd time I've actually made the bodice and sleeves, at least, of the dress, since I also made a version of the dress for non-cosplay purposes this past summer, because literally I will do anything for a dress with poofy sleeves. But needless to say, at this point I should be pretty confident in the construction of this pattern, right? Wrong! So here I am cutting out my fabric for the sleeves, trying to figure out how to fit the pattern pieces in such a limited area, because I thought I had purchased far too little of this linen, when in reality the fabric that I am cutting on is already doubled up, so I only needed to fit 1 sleeve pattern onto this piece instead of 2. So I end up with 4 sleeves that are ever so slightly reduced in the amount of swoosh and poof they have, which is truly a tragedy that I can only attribute to my own lack of brain cells.
I just realized I cut 4 sleeves instead of 2. I feel like a fool. I have so many sleeves now. In my defense, this was the day immediately after I got back from Poland, so we can maybe
just blame the jet lag for this one, but it's really a shame that the sleeves had to suffer for it. Once all the pieces are serged, because all the fabric involved in the shirt frays like nobody's business, it's assembly time. Basically just putting all the bodice pieces together of both the outer layer and the lining layer and then sewing them together, right sides together, except for the armholes. I said except for the armholes. And then turning the bodice inside out. And the sleeves are also what you'd expect, sewing the bottom edge closed, making some gathering stitches, and then attaching the cuff to the sleeve and the sleeve to the shoulder of the bodice. Nice! At this point, I debated a couple of different methods for finishing off the shirt, but what I ended up doing is using the strategy from the Jester Lavore pink cropped shirt and sewing a line of bias tape at the bottom of the hem, through which I ran a piece of elastic that I measured to fit around my waist. That way, I can prevent any unexpected and also undesirable underboobage from happening. The last step was figuring out how to close the back of the shirt. I waffled a bit between buttons and a zipper, but ended up deciding that the easiest method would be adding some grommets and making the back have a corset-like closure. That way I did not have to seam rip for anything zipper related, and I also didn't have to sew any buttonholes, so I see this as an absolute win. And that's the shirt complete. So on to the pants.
The grind doesn't stop just because we're sick, jet-lagged, and depressed. It stops a little. It stops a little.
If this pattern is looking very familiar to you, thanks for watching my Jester Lavore cosplay video, because yes, I'm using the exact same Hakama inspired pants pattern, the one that is open on the sides. Turns out wearing pants underneath really isn't that bad, and honestly great for hiding secrets inside the inside pants pockets, assuming that the pants you're wearing underneath this pants also has pockets. Anyways, now in the artwork I made for Io, her pants has this cool high-waisted corset-esque feature with a ton of little buttons on it. I did actually buy a belt thingy for it that doesn't have buttons, but it does have a fun little lace moment going on. It's a really good color match for the gray fabric that I found for her pants too, and I did try it on with the pants that I made for Jester and loved how it looked and was very sure that this was going to make it into the final cosplay. However, I did not account for two things. Number one was that I forgot how stupid long Io's torso is. Io in general is stretched out and lanky on purpose, whereas I am distinctly not. And in terms of torso real estate, there is no real estate. And number two, which is kind of related to number one, I actually ended up really liking how the vest came out, as well as a ton of the little details that were involved, and because of the lack of torso real estate, wearing the corset belt would cover up a lot of what I loved about the vest itself, and covering up neat little details is kind of painful for my soul, so I decided aesthetic over accuracy like I do with most of my cosplays. Also, you know what? Screw accuracy, I literally am Io, I'll do what I want. Okay, so the last and probably most important piece of this entire cosplay is Io's waistcoat. I wanted to get as close to the actual waistcoat as possible, and to do that I had to make my own pattern, which is a little intimidating, but at least getting saran wrapped and duct tape by my husband is kind of fun. This is our only second time doing this duct tape saran wrap strategy, but I will say this second time is much more of an improvement than our first attempt at wrapping me up, so at least we're learning. After getting all wrapped up, I had my husband draw the basic pattern of the vest directly onto the duct tape, which I got no footage of the drawing process, but hey, look, there it is, all done. Also, if you ever do this strategy, just learn from my mistakes. I had my husband cut me out of the front of this because I was like, oh, it's a vest. I'll just cut it where the vest is open. But turns out scissors coming up from the bottom towards boobage and also your chin is bad, especially if you have tape this far up on your neck, which means there is no leaning your head back to make way for the scissors. So learn from my stupidity and always cut your duct tape cocoons open from the back. Like I said, we're learning, not experts, just learning. So after I finally finally managed to get out of that bad boy, I marked a few more places for seams before cutting the duct tape pattern out nice and flat so I could figure out how many pieces I actually needed to cut out of fabric and also where the darts and things needed to be sewn. I cut both an outer and inner layer of the fabric, leaving an approximated seam allowance because I like to live dangerously. The inner liner was made out of the same material as the pants because I had a lot of it left over, and the outer layer was made of this, I don't know how to describe this fabric. It's a velvet, I guess. It's a lot thinner. I don't know. Whatever it was last call on sale, and I think I bought all that was left of it at the Joann's because it was such a nice feeling material and also not a super heavy material because, you know, making your cosplays relatively light is pretty important, especially in terms of Ren Fair during a season that can happen to be in 80+ degrees Fahrenheit. I also cut out a couple of pieces of interfacing for the shoulder pieces and the cup area, basically just lining the diamond cutout that's over the chest. I was worried that the fabric would fold in on itself, but I didn't want the vest to be entirely a stiff piece of clothing, so I didn't make it like a corset or anything like that. I just wanted to add a little bit of thickness. So once the inner and outer layer were serged and each respective layer was sewn into a relatively vest-like shape, it was time to sew the inner and outer layers together, much like I did with the poof sleeve shirt. Everything but the armholes, and actually everything but the armholes this time. Not that this wasn't a seam ripper free project, but at least I committed 7% less stupid on this vest than on the shirt. Once the vest was mostly assembled, it was time to get the little details on. I bought this silver hemming material because I thought it was silver bias tape when I ordered it, but it came in the mail and I found out it is in fact not bias tape at all, but it still made for a pretty cute edge. Unfortunately, there was still this exposed cut edge that frays super easily, so in order to hide that and also prevent at least a little bit of the fraying, I zigzag stitched this super cool silver metallic beaded trim directly over that raw edge, which I was planning on adding the trim anyways because that's kind of what it looks like Io's vest has in the drawing, but you know, nice for it to have a double purpose, I guess. And last but not least, the little hook and eye clasps, which were just these fancy ones that I ordered off of Amazon that came in a pack of 4. I ended up only using 3, even though I was heavily debating on putting one a little bit higher up on the vest, but by the time I got around to hand sewing these on, I was kind of ready to be finished with the vest because I had been working on it for way too long, and also the aforementioned torso real estate meant that not so many clasps was okay. Also, I did put a clasp on at the neck of the vest, which isn't in the drawing. I just thought it looked neat, and as I said earlier, I'm Io. I can do what I want, and what I want to do right now is show you the reveal. I really love this outfit. This is probably one of my favorite end products in terms of cosplays, I guess, or sewing projects. It's got cool sleeves. I'm really stoked about how the vest came out. I guess I shouldn't be shocked that something based literally off of my own body fits better than like patterns that I've gotten off the internet, but somehow I am still flabbergasted. On top of that, I got a ton of really cool accessories for Io, like the knee-high boots, which I actually found at a thrift store, and I was going to wear it with my pirate jester outfit, but I ended up not doing that, but they still ended up being perfect for Io. I also got this, which is definitely a monocle for sure and not a magnifying glass. I was looking for one that had a little spectacle nose bridge thingy, because that's what Io has, and I know they exist. It's not something that I made up, but I could not for the life of me find one. But you know what, that's okay. I really like this as a necklace anyways. I think it's cute. But my favorite accessory that I bought is probably the bag that goes on the hip. I wore it with every single costume that I wore to the Ren Fair this year, even though I bought it specifically for Io. It's just the perfect size, the perfect shape. It is very convertible, so it can be worn as a backpack, it can be worn on your hip, or you don't even have to have the strap around the thigh. I've seen some people wear it over like their shoulder, and it kind of fits the Ren Fair aesthetic. It comes in a ton of different colors, at least on Amazon where I got mine, and this is not sponsored or anything. I just think it's neat. I was not prepared to be as in love with this costume as I am, and the reason why I was pretty terrified regarding the outfit is because if you've been tagging along for the ride, you will know that if self-confidence had a physical manifestation that could be measured, you would need a very powerful microscope to measure mine. I was going through this journey repeatedly telling myself, lower your expectations, especially because Io is very tall and lanky, and I am very much not any of those things. I was very worried about, like, you know, is it a fit or is she just skinny dilemma? But turns out it is kind of, at least it's a fit to me. And when I first put the costume on, I was pretty much just cackling with glee. Like, it brought me such joy to put it on. You know, I should have known, because nothing brings me more joy than getting fully into makeup and costume. But with that, I will stop all my rambling. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for waiting patiently, as I said at the start of the video. I love you all very much, and I have missed this so very much. It is so good to be back, and I will see you all next week for Io's makeup. Hopefully it will be tutorial, because I mean, we all know how the Jester makeup tutorial went. So maybe this time I'll be more self-aware and make it go better this time, but who knows? Not me.
Okay, I'm soggy.